Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Casey Cooley.
Hello, everybody.
And Cody Geiler. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Welcome back to an action-packed episode. It is now March of 2021. I cannot believe how fast this year is already going, even though it's not too much different than how we ended last year. But lots of Star Wars news coming our way. We're going to dive into things surrounding the Bad Batch that we have a premiere date on as of right now. Some Obi-Wan news, some new novels and comics that are coming out, some rumors that are floating around out there. So thanks for joining us here on Inside the Force. First up, I think the biggest thing to dive into right away is finally getting a premiere date for the Bad Batch, which is the next animated series that Lucasfilm was putting out. We've been waiting patiently for something, and we finally got it. I don't think it's that big of a surprise, but the date that they're going to drop this thing is May the 4th, which is actually a Tuesday, I believe, in May. So they've been traditionally dropping these things on Fridays, but with Mandalorian and, WandaVision, if you want to count that as comic bookish, series that they're expanding on here with Disney Plus. So May the 4th is the first episode that we know of. Maybe it might be more than one, but just probably one episode there. Case. Any surprises that we always heard it was spring. That is in spring still, but probably not too excited, or probably not too shocked that it is May the 4th.
I'm
right?
not too excited.
Yeah.
No. I honestly, I don't even know if we've mentioned May the 4th as a possibility. I can't remember. I don't know why we wouldn't have, but
Right.
No, it's great. It's perfect. I think, does that mean? I feel like they should be doing more with that day. It's kind of a given day where they should just do a lot on it. Whether it's premieres or news days. I feel like they don't always take advantage of that, and I think this is certainly a good way to do it. Premiering an awesome new show, but yeah, very exciting. A little later than I guess I thought it would be, but it's still awesome.
Yes, definitely a little later, and I agree with you. I think. Even though I feel like May the 4th has gained traction over the years, it's become more and more popular, especially on social. People just sharing all kinds of things on May the 4th, how much they love Star Wars, what they're doing on that day. But you're right. I feel like Lucasfilm hasn't fully embraced what they could do with that day. It's almost could be its own online virtual celebration in a sense, where you just have a jam-packed day of events and reveals and all that stuff. So maybe they'll get there. I don't know, but Cody, I'm sure you're going to be watching this on May the 4th, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Probably as early as possible. Try to get up before my son gets up. Watch a little Bad Batch. Feel like that was kind of the groove I got into with The Mandalorian. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised, like you all said, that it was as late. It makes sense. May the 4th, Star Wars Day. I'm trying to remember. Clone Wars started in a lot earlier. Did it end around May the 4th for the final season?
Might have, because kind of the same. Didn't Galleries start on May the 4th? Was Galleries on May the 4th? I feel like there was like a transition where one show ended and another show began, and it was around May the 4th. So it might have been.
I think you're right, yeah. But it makes sense, I guess, now looking at the schedule, hindsight. They've got on Disney Plus, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is about to kick off this month. And that'll probably, I don't know, I guess that's maybe 6 episodes. So that'll lead up to this point. I think it'll be interesting to see, because it feels like they've tried to space it out. So you've got, you had Mando, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, and now Bad Batch, and then they'll continue doing other Marvel related stuff and non-Star Wars stuff. But at some point, they're going to have an overlap of Disney Plus content, Marvel and Star Wars. And I think they're just going to have to go ahead and let that happen. And then eventually you'd think they're going to have an overlap with Star Wars shows at some point with the amount that they've announced. So,
yeah, and I hope they are open for that. I hope they're not trying to just keep it like a once a week thing for these shows and not like the movies feel like they're going to give us too much because, no, I want to wake up every day and watch a new TV show from Star Wars. Any chance you guys, Cody? Any chance you think that we could get another episode that Friday, or you think this? Because I feel like they're going to move it to every Friday again, but maybe not. Maybe it will stay on Tuesday.
That's interesting. I haven't looked enough at the other Disney Plus schedule, like calendar. I think. Obviously, Mandalorian was always Fridays. WandaVision has been Fridays. If Falcon and Winter Soldier is also Fridays,
it is. It debuts on the 19th, March 19th, all the Clone on Friday.
Wars was Fridays. I would assume that we will get it's almost like a 2-part premiere, but just a couple days apart. Which they did that with the Mando season 1.
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken. So
they did.
That'd be pretty awesome. 2 episodes in 1 week.
2 episodes 1 week, and then, like you said, I think. Loki debuts in June, if I'm correct, or mid to late June. So there you go. It could lead up to that, or it could overlap a little bit there. I think we'll get Star Wars, Marvel crossing over for running at the same time before we obviously get 2 Star Wars shows going, because it doesn't seem like they're overlapping any of the Marvel shows yet. At some point, you're going to have a lot of those. You have a lot of those going into production too. So, but yeah. So Bad Batch. We're going to come back towards the end of Bad Batch to kind of dive into a little bit more of what we think is going to happen with that show towards the end. But did you guys actually get a look at? There's a screenshot of Fennec out there from the Bad Batch. Did you guys get a shot of that?
Yeah, that looks really good. I mean, just the aesthetic of it looked really good. Very similar to the Clone Wars, that kind of painted brush look, like on the face. But I mean, it reminded me how good the last season of Clone Wars looked. Mm-hmm. This is definitely picking up where that quality left off. So yeah, looks pretty awesome.
Yeah. Case or Cody, that looked like Fennec to you?
It looked like Fennec.
Younger,
yeah, it definitely looked like her. I think it's her.
I think she had a lot longer hair. I think, right?
I think you might be right.
Ponytail, I think.
I mean, some of the Clone Wars features are exaggerated. Like if you look back at the Dooku, if you hadn't seen Dooku in live action and you tried to translate him from the Clone Wars to live action, he would have a really strangely shapen head. So, they take some liberties, I guess. But no, I thought it was interesting. The one thing that I thought was weird, I don't know if this came out officially, because I don't remember seeing it on StarWars.com or anything, or if it was just sort of like on the internet. But I wonder why her and not other characters or members of the Bad Batch or Commander Cody, for no reason at all. Just throwing that out there. He's a pretty cool character. He's got a cool name.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's it's interesting because I feel like they're setting her up to have a bigger role, and obviously we will learn more of her backstory. I feel like, which will then explain a lot when Book of Boba Fett comes out. Then we'll know where this character has come from and what she's gone through, and we'll get more of her in that series as well. So, but this is this is 20, almost 30 years prior to what we've seen her. So it's a pretty good gap. So kind of staying on that Disney Plus news, a couple of not confirmed news, but definitely some things centered around the Obi-Wan show. And forgive me if I'm butchering her name, but Indira Varma, who played a character in Game of Thrones. She was, oh gosh, I had it, the place she was from. I haven't seen it in a while, but I know her. Have you guys seen Game of Thrones? I don't. I know Casey hasn't.
Yeah, she's gosh, now I'm blanking on it too. Where
Dorma?
Pedro's
Is it Dorma? Started with a D, didn't it? Anyway, people are saying on the show right now, you idiots. It's anyway. So she actually played. Didn't she play? She played Pedro Pascal's wife, right? Wasn't she married to Pedro on the show? Anyway,
I think it was like an in-law or something.
This is a good backup pilot for our Game of Thrones show.
Totally. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, actually, yeah, you're right, Cody. I could be completely wrong about that, but it's been a while. But anyway, I know what she looks like. I remember her from the show, and she apparently has been cast in the Obi-Wan Disney Plus show. A lot of rumors out there, obviously, who she could be playing, whether or not it's a flashback or whether or not it's a current character in the current timeline, that wherever we are here, which is, I think, about 7 years. I think I could be off too. I can't remember. 7 years or so after episode 3. What do you think, Case? Any speculations on where you think she's playing?
Yeah, I mean, this is funny because a friend of mine actually wrote a fan script of Obi-Wan like a year or two ago, maybe. And so I always think about his story. So like this in his story, there is like a love interest type on Tatooine for Obi-Wan. And so I keep thinking about that when I hear of her casting, not like a full-fledged, kind of love story, but very much a love interest sort of for Obi-Wan. So I would like it if she is like someone from Tatooine who just befriends Obi-Wan and they develop a relationship, and not necessarily romantic, but just a close relationship between them two. It would be pretty cool. But I think she's a brand new character, and probably nothing. I wouldn't think at first. I don't think anything too crazy like a villain, or obviously there's probably a lot of rumors about if she's an Inquisitor or Jedi or whatever, But I think she might just be a average person on Tatooine, just a run of the mill somebody.
What do you think, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Casey's saying makes a lot of sense. I think it would be interesting if it was somewhat more of a romantic relationship for Obi-Wan, mostly because I feel like there are threads to explore of like what it means to be a Jedi and have something like that, like they did with Anakin. But then also, the Jedi don't exist at this point. So Obi-Wan, while he probably would stay true to his code, he has to sort of forsake that code to live, right? He has to choose not to use the Force to probably hide. And, in what ways is he either, just trying to fit in and or just trying to connect with somebody? So I think it could be interesting to go that route. Another thing that might be a bit strange, because I don't know that they'll go like a more noir style, but if she was like a femme fatale and she did have a little bit of a turn like Kira, in Solo, I think that could be a really interesting place to take if Obi-Wan really trusted in somebody, like for the first time since Anakin, and then like it kind of turned on him for whatever reason, or if she found out that he was a Jedi and it kind of blows up or whatever.
So Cody, you don't think there's a possibility she plays a character from the past?
I mean, I think original would probably be more interesting. I mean, I've definitely thought about like, are there going to be flashbacks? Would she be a live action Satine?
Yes, that's apparently what the rumor is out there. Obviously,
I mean, I'd be interested. I'd be more interested if she wasn't just in flashbacks. But if they want to go that route, and they do have a lot of, maybe they will have flashbacks from the Clone Wars with Anakin and Hayden and stuff. So there could be a lot of different ways to take it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a possibility there will be flashbacks. I don't think there will be enough there though to garner enough interest in casting characters like this in really brief roles like that. So I'm with you guys. I think it's got to be a new character. The thing about it is when we start talking about these shows like Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and others, I feel like we as Star Wars fans, we start trying to look at these connections and how they're going to bring in these nostalgic characters and things that, and I think in the end it's always going to be I think in the end our expectations should always be about it's going to be a new planet, it's going to be a new character, it's going to be they're trying to expand this thing, not necessarily keep it in a tunnel with the same characters in the same locations all the time. Every planet I feel like that pops up in Mandalorian, everyone's like, oh, that's Tatooine, or that's Endor, or that's Hoth, but it's not. It's a different planet. So I think we need to start, definitely looking at original characters and original stories, locations and stuff like that. So I definitely think she's probably someone on Tatooine that he runs into a lot. Maybe she's in Mos Eisley or Mos Espa or something, and he has to get supplies somehow too, so and maybe it could be a love interest. Who knows? Maybe Rey's not his granddaughter. So
well, that's what I was going to say. I kept thinking I wish this came out like a couple of years ago when just imagine all the people saying, oh, it's Rey's mom.
Yeah.
Like every single girl that was casted in the last 5 years, it's Rey's mom.
That's right. So anyway, not totally confirmed from Lucasfilm, but apparently that is what's out there as far as new casting for Obi-Wan. And speaking of Obi-Wan, also, it is rumored out there right now that Ewan McGregor apparently signed a recurring role as Obi-Wan, meaning that he could possibly show up in the Andor series that I thought, as far as I know, had already wrapped filming. But, we don't know. He could have snuck in there and does some shots and whatnot. But Cody, any truth to that, you think? Or, and if so, how much is he relevant to that storyline?
I mean, I think when I first saw this, I thought that has to be a mistake or like a fake sort of article, but like I read more about it. It seems like this website that's reported on it has had decent track record, maybe some misses and some hits. I just don't like, if you look at where the Rebels and Cassian, and specifically where Bail is in Rogue One, you would assume that Obi-Wan has not been contacted up until that point, and right, like what leads us to Leia's journey in A New Hope. So, just from like what we know, I would think it wouldn't make sense at all to put him in it. But thinking about how they've been developing these shows, and the Mandalorian season 2, it's sort of like opened up the toy chest, so to speak, to be like, oh yeah, Luke shows up at the end, and kind of this model that we've been speculating and talking about is like, okay, you have any shows set in the same time period, you might as well pull in somebody like Obi-Wan for a big cameo. Maybe he doesn't interact with Cassian, maybe he doesn't interact with the Rebels, maybe we're following I don't know, maybe we're following the Imperial for a certain portion of episode or whatever. I think it could happen.
Well, let's go there for a second, because it's interesting you say that about Rogue One, because that does beg the question of how does Mon Mothma know about Obi-Wan? Because she's the one to ask Bail about him, right? So does that mean he did make an appearance somehow and met everybody? Because at the time of at the end of episode 3, right? If you feel like Obi-Wan, Bail, and Yoda are the ones that know really that situation right now, because I've always talked about it. I think that it's unfortunate that those scenes in episode 3 about the beginning parts of the rebellion with Padme, Mon Mothma, and Bail got cut, because you did see that relationship with Bail and Mon Mothma, which makes sense that they're together in Rogue One still. But they don't. But as far as I know, at that point, Mothma doesn't know which Jedi have survived, so Bail probably had to tell her, or we may see Obi-Wan show up, and that's how she knows, about him. Could be case. What do you think about the whole thing?
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, it almost, your gut reaction is like, how could he be involved in a regular role, a reoccurring role with Andor? It's like, because we never thought Cassian had, it's like all these things. Like, why didn't Cassian mention him in Rogue One? So it's like one of those questions again. But I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean he had to have mentioned him or referenced him if he met him during this show. So it's. I think anything could happen. I think if he's a recurring role, he could be involved with Cassian. He can be involved with Bail. Definitely Bail. And I think that's what a lot of the rumors are about. It's like him interacting with Bail in some fashion, but like hologram or whatever it is. But like if it's a regular role, then like what? Yeah, I mean, it's almost like it would be taking the thunder away. Like if Obi-Wan is a reoccurring character, then I just want to see Obi-Wan. I feel like that's maybe that's what they had to do to make this show really something special. Who knows? But it would be interesting. But I think it's anything could happen. I think literally anything could happen. Obi-Wan could be a secret, just be involved in this whatever it is, this kind of spy-esque world for a moment. Who knows? I think anything is possible. But yeah, it's even though Mon Mothma referred to Obi-Wan as your Jedi friend, it doesn't negate the fact that she might even have met him personally. She'd just be kind of just trying to be more vague and talking to Bail about this in the open. Or Bail just...
What was that guy's name?
Yeah.
Your Jedi friend?
Your Jedi friend.
The only one that survived? I forget his name.
He had like 3 short names. Yeah, or it's like Bail just... it's like lying about your fake girlfriend. He has this Jedi friend. Yeah, what about your Jedi friend that you keep talking about? So I think it would be really cool. I think it's totally possible that Obi-Wan, Mon Mothma, Bail, Cassian, they could all be interacting. It could happen.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure we hit on the timeline here, though, because what we've been told is that the Obi-Wan series that we will see him in takes place 10 years after Episode 3. So we're talking 9 years till A New Hope. Right? The Andor series, which has fluctuated, but apparently it's been locked down now, that takes place 5 years before Episode 4, which is basically around the time that Star Wars Rebels starts, right? So if Obi-Wan, and again, now you're talking, then it's about 4 years after when the Obi-Wan series takes place. So we're going to see... It sounds like we're going to see Andor released first on Disney Plus because they shot that first. So then we'll technically get a older Obi-Wan than we will in his series, right? But then, Casey, we talk about this all the time. Like, if you have Obi-Wan show up in Andor, now, obviously, it depends on what he does. Does he fight the Empire at all? Does he show himself at all to any Imperials? Blah, blah, blah. Because, again, if Rebels starts then, you're getting a Jedi reveal in that show where Kanan finally reveals himself again and he starts training Ezra. So then you have this Rebel cell with a Jedi, and then you have Obi-Wan over here maybe with the group of Bail and Andor. I don't know. You're really starting to introduce Jedis involved in the rebellion prior to the Return of the Jedi, right? I don't know. It's it gets a little, there's that line somewhere that I just don't know at what point you can cross it, where the Jedi are involved in the rebellion prior to Luke becoming bringing the Jedi back. Does that make sense, Cody?
Yeah, I feel like I know what you're saying. Is like we've always said it with other shows, and even with Rebels at the time being, is like, how can there be this many Jedi when it was Kanan and he's training Ezra running around, right up before A New Hope? You'd have to think that we always thought, okay, how are they going to write them out? But Dave and the team, they proved that they could do it. So at this point, I feel like I have to trust them that if they are going to introduce them, they're going to do it in a way that doesn't discredit Obi-Wan's sort of journey in A New Hope. But the thing that I feel like is a little weirder for just audience, and maybe more so like a general audience when you're thinking about TV more so than the movie, because the movie, they have to do a lot more selling. At least you used to, because you had to like purchase a ticket, go out and go to the theater and sit down, right? That's why they pay so much more for marketing. When it's on TV, I mean, you've already purchased the streaming service. They just want you to click on it at this point.
Yeah.
But the timelines, I feel like, are going to get really confusing for fans that might not be following it as closely. I mean, even for me, until you broke down the timeline, I wasn't quite sure at what point, how old Obi-Wan would be in Andor. So I feel like they do have a hurdle to climb if they're going to introduce him in that show first, older, and then go back and tell this other story. I think it's too confusing, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, again, it's just a report that's out there right now, because like I mentioned earlier, I feel like Andor has wrapped shooting, so it's possible that this appearance from Obi-Wan might not actually come till the second season. Because to me that was new news too, when we found out that K2SO wasn't going to show up not in this season, because I was always under the impression this was a limited series. This was only going to be a one-off season, just like Obi-Wan. But apparently Andor may have a couple more seasons. Therefore, Obi-Wan could show up there. So he may not debut in the first season of Andor. He could. So that could be like you said, Cody, that could prevent people from getting confused on, well, does Obi-Wan take place before this or after this? I wish, I kind of wish, I think, Casey, you said something like this years ago, but if I remember correctly, didn't you say, like, with all this stuff that we're getting, they should have like some timeline thing in the beginning of something? Didn't we ever talk about that? Like,
I think we did a little bit, yeah. I think we did a little bit. Or even if they kept the crawl type of thing, or just like even how they did it with Solo, if they did like a brief little intro thing to place it, in the timeline. For one way to quickly, I feel like, distinguish this time period, if you're using Obi-Wan, is simply how he's going to look. I mean, if this is 5 years from A New Hope, I mean, he should be getting pretty gray at this point. Yeah. So I feel like that will be a quick indicator of when this takes place. Is you see all white-haired, more Alec Guinness looking Obi-Wan, old Ben look, and then you have a more in between young Obi-Wan look in the spinoff. So that could be one way to do it. But it's just funny because I read quick thing I read online was someone pointing the fact that Obi-Wan seems to be doing a lot of not watching Luke amongst these shows. Like he's somehow he's going to be fighting Vader in one, and then working with Cassian in this one. So, poor Luke is just, off on his own.
Yeah.
Getting in trouble.
Yeah, he's lucky he has to come back to Tatooine and find that Luke, crashed his speeder, and, he's no longer with us,
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I do think he would be, talking about first season or second season, because I'm surprised. Well, a lot of the times with shows, when they announce casts for actors way after a show has or movie has wrapped. Even, not usually huge actors, but still, it's interesting that. And besides, they like maybe the Disney Plus structure allows for more secrecy because they've done such a fantastic job so far of keeping things secret. So this would be another huge thing that they have done a very good job of not leaking with set photos, but odds are maybe he's been, it's just that reoccurring word. If that's true, that's the big puzzler, because if it was just like a cameo thing, that's fine. That's easy. You can, if he's just in a hologram in one scene or whatever, that's easy to pull off. But if he's reoccurring, how is he that involved? That's just what I always go to.
Good question there, because that's because at that point, you already got your own Obi-Wan show. Why is he showing up so much in there? But again, not totally confirmed, but I also think they've got to be playing off the hype of this Obi-Wan series. I think everybody's been clamoring for this series. It's unbelievable if you got Ewan McGregor to actually come back and do this. So, I think putting him in whatever they can. I mean, they're trying to get, like Cody said, they're trying to get as many clicks as they can on all their content. So, I think obviously we're going to watch, but hopefully the average fan gets a chance to get on there and watch it too, and see where it goes. I just, I do hope, my one hope of any of this stuff, because what I do like about the Andor concept is, seeing more of the inner workings of the rebellion. That's what I love actually about Rogue One is you don't have that Jedi aspect, you don't have that Skywalker aspect with Luke and Leia, but you actually have the rebels, the ones that are that scene. I still really love that scene where Jin comes back and they're actually debating on whether or not they should go to Scarif. Like, it's 19 years into this rebellion, and you're still trying to work in the Senate and diplomacy. Because at that point, you remember the Senate is not dissolved yet, so they're still trying to work diplomacy into this, and it hasn't worked. And you have half the room that wants to fight, and half the room that's afraid to fight. It's just a lot of interesting. I mean, not only are they fighting the rebellion, but they're fighting each other a lot, about what they should do. And I think there's a lot of good stuff there.
That's a really interesting angle, I feel like, because you could have somebody like Bail, and even Mon Mothma, if she's, as knowledgeable of the situation as Bail is and was, that they're trying to win hearts and minds that no, the Jedi weren't bad. But then there's half the room of rebels is no, that dude told us what happened. And it's this idea of who writes history. And that feels like it could really work in this sort of spy genre. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point. And maybe is an interesting way to bring in this idea of Jedi where it's more of a kind of political struggle, and then maybe there is a dire situation where they reach out to Obi-Wan, and does he answer? Does he not? Is he no, my place is here with Luke, or are they in such a bad place that he has to come and make an appearance to do something?
What are you about to say, Case? You about to say something?
I was just laughing because I kept thinking, talking about that scene. I hope they have, and I don't know if many people catch on to this because I think it's hilarious. I hope the one guy in that scene who just randomly shouts, what is she proposing? You remember that guy?
Yeah.
I want him to be in this, and I hope he's somehow got a more fleshed out role. Every time I watch that scene, it just kills me. It's just random. It's the same guy from The Dark Knight, in that press conference that just starts shouting. Always have that one guy.
Yeah. No, that's that's good. That's a good, Cody, because I think even maybe that's why. I mean, it could be a reason why they do bring Obi-Wan in, because you do have half of the rebellion or half of those rebels that still believe that the Jedi can't be trusted. And maybe there's that history lesson in a sense of really what happened, and here's a Jedi that survived the purge, and blah blah blah. I don't know, it's because as far as I know, that story hasn't really been told. The story of why does the rebellion all of a sudden want the Jedi back, like want Luke to train to be a Jedi, and it's funny when we get to even when we get to Mandalorian, when Luke makes an appearance there, people, maybe some people have heard about the Jedi, but at that point it's like, are they still considered traitors? Are they still considered the group that tried to overthrow the Republic? But I don't know if anybody in the Outer Rim at that point really even cares or knows the whole story, but that is a story that I think we've talked about a lot, that we wouldn't mind seeing or hearing about. Next show, real quick, Hera Sindola, our favorite pilot from Star Wars Rebels, is rumored to possibly be now into the lead role of Rangers of the New Republic. Any weight to this case, you think?
I hope so. I mean, I think she's been on the short list of fan hopes, for a while. So this kind of gives more weight to that, and that's be very exciting. I mean, and obviously, it's like the next thought is then who's going to play her, and you think of the kind of how are they going to go the cast the voice actor role route like they did, or a new actress, that kind of thing. But Vanessa Marshall, I feel like she could still do it. I mean, it's like all those actors that they casted in Rebels, I feel like could actually play those roles, in live action. So it would be cool if they kept with that trend. But I mean, if she's in it, I can only think that she would be kind of the leader of the Rangers, kind of the Zordon of the Rangers. But that would be amazing. And this just came to me too. Like, if she's in it, then wouldn't her son maybe be in it as well? What's he been up to, for goodness sakes? That old goofy looking kid, Jason, right?
Jason Sindola, yeah.
He's just happy to be there, man. He's just jazzed to be flying with his mama. So I'd love to see him come back and see it. I mean, this might be the opportunity to have that character finally, because he would be, I mean, if this is kind of he would still be pretty young though, right? If this is still in that same Mandalorian
5-6 years old, yeah.
So this would be a cool live action introduction for him as well.
Well, depending on when he actually probably would have been born around.
It's still vague on when all that takes place in Rebels, but they could totally. It wouldn't even be a retcon. They could totally say like, "Oh, that was I don't know." They could probably find a way to make it age him up a little bit. Say,
probably he could be in that 10 to 12 range, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What do you think, Case? You want to see Hera leading the show? Cody?
Too many C names. It happens all the time. I'm interested in Hera. I feel like it makes sense. I mean, if Dave is involved in producing and/or writing, then yes, it's probably absolutely going to happen. You're almost like wondering why they didn't do this from the start. It makes me like, when I heard about this show and assumed Cara was more involved, and because of the Republic badge and stuff that they had set up in Mando Season 2, which seemed like it was the route they were going, I didn't think about pilots as much. But when you mention Hera, immediately you're like, oh, could be a show about pilots. So I feel like it kind of changes a little bit of my expectation of what the show could be. Not necessarily in a bad way or anything, but so I feel like it could go more of the, here are these sort of like rogue, like almost like a rogue squadron of sorts of pilots in the New Republic era. I was really interested when you talked about Jason Sindola, though, Casey, because I feel like that's something that I haven't seen pop up. And I feel like, and this may not really happen on the Ranger show, because it does seem like it would kind of take you away from what they're maybe trying to establish. But the perfect opportunity is he 5-10 years old? Well, guess who else is force sensitive and pretty young and hanging out with a Jedi Master?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Luke and Grogu, and then Jason Syndulla.
Luke daycare. It's got a little Luke
First episode is Hera dropping off. Yeah. First episode, you're like,
so that's
Hera's dropping him off
right there. It's like kindergarten cop, but Luke got all these kids around him.
And Ben's only
and Ben,
4 or 5 years old, right?
It's like the poster's him with his hands up and all these kids around him. That would be pretty great. That's awesome. I love that.
I think the backdoor pilot for Luke's Jedi Temple is definitely there. I don't know that they'll go that route, but
that's awesome.
I'm almost more interested in that than I am in Hera, to be honest. But
I want it.
I wonder if they will who they'll cast, though. That's a good question.
Yeah, because speaking of cast, just real quick too, I forgot to mention that another rumor is Mina Masand, which is the guy that played Aladdin in the live action, is apparently rumored to be cast as Ezra Bridger in the Ahsoka series. So that goes back to your comment, Casey, about them looking possibly at other actors. Besides the Rebels cast. Seems like I think right now Katie Sackhoff is the only one that's made that jump. We'll see.
Well, Taylor Gray, I feel like would be a little young. I feel like he's still kind of. He might. I think he's around the same age as me. Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe a little younger than me even. But actually, I don't know how much. I don't know how old Aladdin is, honestly. But Ezra should be what? I mean. Math right now.
Well, he was born on Empire Day,
late 20s, right? Late 20s right now.
He'd be 26, I think. Yeah.
Also, like Taylor Gray probably is actually around that age, so never mind. But yeah, I mean, I liked Aladdin. He was good. He certainly has a good look, and he can do, the stunts. He was doing some cool parkour in that movie, so I think he'd be a good fit. And I love this. Ori is setting up what seems to be these rumors, that is, if it's all true, that this is a good shared universe of sorts, with people are talking about there's going to be a sequel Rebels show, or maybe it's more so just, it's not really one show that's the sequel. It's just all this, it's just a universe now is the sequel to Rebels. And that's really exciting because, like you said, Cody, it's like a rogue squadron, these Rangers, what if their sole mission is to go and get Thrawn or whatever, or, kind of fight this force, or start this whatever it is, this new threat, to kind of investigate and figure out, assess it, whatever, and then it just gets bigger. So, there's so much right now that's snowballing with fan expectations, and who knows if it's what's really going to happen. But I think they're really doing a good job of setting it up. It's kind of what we hoped the Rogue One era was going to be, with like Solo and all these other movies and shows that they were setting, which sounds like they may actually be doing that now, kind of finally getting around to it, hopefully, with Andor and Obi-Wan, and that maybe. But this era truly feels like it's finally tying all these things together, which is long overdue, I would say.
Did you want to add anything, Cody?
I mean, I thought the Ezra casting was kind of interesting. I mean, I think it makes sense to not cast the voice actor in his position, to a little bit what Casey said. Even if his age lines up, I think that actor breathes and looks a little younger than he actually might be. So it just makes sense, and I think it's definitely cool to see a potential, I guess I'll call it the Filoni-verse, just because it's more of his characters than it is Favreau's at this point,
right.
Sort of building to what that might happen. And with Hera being added potentially now to Rangers, it just all makes sense that you'll have Ahsoka in her own show, Hera in her own show. I guess Ezra is going to pop up in the Ahsoka show, and then now it's just really interesting to see how the Mandalorian, how Din fits into that story. It'll be cool to see.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think it is a big expectation from the fans to see a live action Hera, but we've seen a CG version of her in Star Wars Squadrons, right? So Hera's in that, as well as another person I think that you're going to make the jump to live action, Admiral Sloane, Ray Sloane also. So they have, and as far as I can tell, they casted somebody in those roles because they motion captured them, right? So it'd be curious to see if those actors actually play a role into the live action translations of those characters, because she did look very much like Hera. But I think, if I remember correctly, they used Vanessa Marshall's voice, though, in the game. So then it goes back to that whole thing with Ahsoka, right? You know, you casted a Rosario Dawson, but she doesn't sound like Ahsoka. This is the live action version of her, so it doesn't have to sound the same. But again, it really ups the appreciation when you see someone like Bo-Katan that sound like her, as well as, you know, look the character too. So,
but if they ever bring Zeb into this, they have to have Steve Bloom voice him. There's like no one else. There's no one, because he's the only person who has ever done it, and it would be an animated character anyway. So, yeah. And Tisa Carr is like, she's doing great in live action world right now. She certainly looks the part. So I would think she would be a good contender for the role, you know, if they're already bringing her into it as well, which is what all the rumors are saying. So, I mean, and obviously you already got Rex. You've already got...
That's right.
I wonder if for Zeb and for Hera, if they could do a Ray Park type scenario where you have an actor play them live action, but especially like in Zeb's case, where like it could be mocap, it could be CG, or it could be somebody in a Zeb suit, and then you just have Steve Bloom do all the voices or something. Yeah. And I mean, they could do it for Hera. Probably less likely because they've kind of got the Twi'lek makeup and costume stuff down pretty good, I feel like, in live action.
I do too. Yeah. I do too. Okay, so before we get into some Bad Batch talk some more, just some quick reminders for everybody about some releases. Victory's Price, which is the third book in the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, just dropped yesterday, Tuesday, March 2nd. So that is out there, the conclusion of that, by Alexander Freed. That is out there. Go check that out. The other upcoming novel releases Dr. Aphra, the audio book. The audio drama that was released a few months ago is getting a printed version. That's coming out April 6th. The second book in the Thrawn is Ascendancy trilogy. Greater Good comes out in April as well. You've got Rising Storm, which is the Cavan Scott High Republic novel that drops in June. And then still on the docket is the Mandalorian novel that we don't really know anything about. That's hitting shelves on November 2nd still of this year. Comics are still rolling out. High Republic number 3, I believe, dropped today. You got Star Wars number 10 coming out next week. Bounty Hunter number 10 coming out the week after that. So a lot of good comics rolling out as well. Okay, so the Bad Batch. Now that we got the release date on May the 4th, I had to remind myself and ask you guys if we had actually ever talked about what we expect as far as the plot to this show, right? You've got, let's just, looking back at the other animated series, Clone Wars, even though the Clone Wars were about the war between the Separatists and the Republic, I mean, ultimately ended up being the story of Ahsoka and the story of Rex surviving with Ahsoka, and what happens with her and leaving the Jedi and witnessing what happens with Anakin and whatnot. You get to Rebels. Obviously, that's the beginning of the Rebel Alliance, right? I mean, we see the birth of the Rebel Alliance in that show from this small cell of group of rebels from Lothal. And now we have this series, which takes place right after the Clone Wars ends. It seems like we're going to probably see some of the end of the Clone Wars. In the trailer, it shows Palpatine declaring Empire Day, in a sense, the birth of the Empire. So But there's got to be, it can't just be the Bad Batch fighting some wars, right? There's got to be some underlying story possibly in there somewhere. Where are we going? Where are we trying to get to? It's interesting to think because we are centering now fully around these clones, or it could branch out. Who knows? So that's what we want to kind of talk about now. So, Case, what do you think? What's your thoughts on where the storyline can go in the Bad Batch?
Well, I mean, there's so many cool things that they could do, I suppose. But I mean, at the bare minimum, honestly, this feels like it could be at the start. It certainly feels like it could be a escape, like the first arc, just escaping, surviving, or the Order 66 and kind of their side of it, their point of view of it. But ultimately, the show could almost live on just the fact of it being these group of guys going from they're just one mission to the next, like with their own, like, not mercenaries. I feel like mercenaries is like a negative way to call them, but like a magnificent. What are they, 4 or 5 now?
5.
If Echo is still with them, right? So it's just going from town to town, like more of a Western vibe would be pretty cool. Like just helping out, all the chaos that's kind of going throughout the galaxy at this point, but in their own way, like doing small little things here and there, helping along. But as with all these other shows, obviously, I feel like it'll balloon, and these guys will get wrapped up into something bigger. So it's like escaping Order 66, laying low for a while, but can't help themselves with helping people. So they'll get back into it. Then all of a sudden, they'll meet the right person and get involved into the Rebel Alliance or somebody, or maybe they. Maybe it plays closer to home with these other shows, meaning like maybe it's Cassian, or that's a little far fetched probably at this point, but someone that is more recognizable to get reintroduced to. But how Fennec Shand plays into it, I'm not sure. Maybe she's, I don't know. There's a few ways I guess it could go, but I can't quite put a pin on how Fennec Shand plays a role with it, like in a reoccurring sense, whether she's a villain, or she kind of joins them maybe, but I'm not, I don't really see it necessarily one way or the other, because she's simply a bounty, unless she's just simply following a bounty, just
right.
There's a bounty on these guys and she's chasing them. But I would imagine there's multiple bounty hunters, not just one would go after her, but who knows? So that's it. I think that's kind of the safest way to explain, I guess, how the show could go. But yeah.
So your assumption is that they are not affected by Order 66.
Yeah, I mean, I would think. To me, that's almost the easiest thing to do, because I don't know if I could take 5 of these guys finding a way to struggle and get through the chip problem. The Bible, it's like that sounds a little redundant to me, but I'm sure there's a cool way to do it. It's like, I don't know how it could be done, obviously, but it's because the way it happened to Rex was so dramatic and very gripping. I don't know how you could make that same effect with this whole group at once. Or maybe it's already gone from Echo since he went through this crazy transformation, and then so he's the one that pulled the other guys out of it. But I like it better if they all just don't have the chip, because that's their uniqueness, is that right. The chip was But digging deeper into it, why would the Kaminoans let that happen? Are they okay with these mutations not having the chip, and thus having 4 at the start, 4 flaws, 4 liabilities, so I don't know. I mean, there's a way to write it, I know, but I don't know how that would be at the moment.
What do you got, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like picking up with that conversation, I really do feel like, the heart of, the Clone Wars obviously was more so about Ahsoka, but at the heart of a lot of the beginning of the Clone Wars and some of the arcs was this idea of clones and their individuality. So I feel like if you kind of pick up there with this idea of them either being thrown into this Order 66, I do agree. I feel like it makes the most sense, since they were defective clones, that they don't carry out Order 66, and that's what maybe starts us off on this show. And I feel like maybe their sort of MO as they're escaping and whatnot is they're trying to uncover how to potentially reverse it. Like, they might have clones that they are close with, right? You know, like their Commander Cody was sort of like the one that was in charge of their group in the Bad Batch arcs that we saw, and he could obviously we saw it in Revenge of the Sith. He carried out Order 66, so he would be on the opposite side of them. Other clones that they might also be close with, and so maybe in their mind it's like, okay, we need to escape this from happening. And maybe they see Jedi, killed or whatever, and that also obviously would be something that they wouldn't want to do. But they might be trying to figure out how to reverse it to save the other clones. And we know there's some other clones scattered about. And obviously we know where Rex is at the end of the Clone Wars final season. And I do think, kind of like Casey said, it'll probably start, them just sort of traveling around, maybe finding information. Maybe that's how they get involved with Finnick and bounty hunters and some of the more seedy parts of the galaxy, is trying to figure out what's going on with these chips and who can help them maybe reverse engineer the chips. But I feel like it will grow, and it could bring in characters like Rex, who actually kind of know a bit more about what happened with the chips and how to potentially save some of the clones that they might be trying to save. And then obviously you have to wonder, when a Rex gets brought in, that Ahsoka might get brought in, and what's the Force involvement going to be, if there is any. So I feel like that Seeds of the Rebellion makes sense for their eventual arc, but I feel like maybe their like sort of main driving line is like, we need to save as many clones as we can, or figure out how to undo Order 66. And maybe they're unsuccessful to a certain extent. The trailer or the sizzle reel for this seemed a bit darker in tone and visual style. So, there could be a little bit more going into loss and what that means and how they cope with it and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good. I think I'll start off by saying, for one, I would have never guessed we would get a series based on the Bad Batch. They were actually in a different arc as well, if you remember, and unfinished episodes, right? The whole Crystal Crisis on Utapau, they were part of that unfinished episodes in the Clone Wars. So we would have gotten several more episodes with the Bad Batch, but right now, as far as canon goes, we only got the 4 of this final season. And just, again, timeline-wise, if people didn't realize, they moved the Ahsoka arc with the sisters earlier than the Bad Batch. So the Bad Batch actually happens right before the Siege of Mandalore, in a sense, as far as timeline goes. So that whole situation that they're involved with Anakin and saving Echo, and then Echo being a part of it doesn't seem like they're together all that much before all of a sudden Order 66 happens. So I think this is what I hope. Whether or not they do this, I don't know, but obviously, but I'm with both of you in the sense that if it's Filoni, there's got to be a Force aspect to it. There's got to be a Jedi aspect to it. So I was thinking about ways to do that, and I think I like the fact that they don't have the chip. I think that would be like Casey, yeah, I agree with you. I think that would be a hard thing to accomplish, about all 4 of them trying to get saved, or Echo, because Echo still, to my knowledge, isn't aware either about the chip. Fives is the only one that was aware of it, and Rex apparently thought there was something there, in his report. But Echo maybe still has it. Maybe it got removed, and hopefully maybe it got removed. And then the Bad Batch, maybe they never got it because they were, a bad batch of clones, so they got kind of pushed aside. But unfortunately for them, they got heightened powers, or basically, heightened abilities to do what they're able to do now. But I think in the end, what I think could possibly be a good storyline for them, which again fits maybe Filoni's style, is what happens at the end of the Clone Wars, right? The end of the Clone Wars is the beginning of the Empire and the turn of the galaxy against the Jedi. At this point, the Jedi were traitors. And the first thing Vader is tasked to do is hunt down the Jedi, right? So what we know is that Vader has his whole army of Inquisitors that he's training. This is from the comics. He's training a bunch of Inquisitors to go after the remaining Jedi that are out there. And they have a list, apparently, of possible Jedis that have survived. Obi-Wan's on that list. Yoda's on that list. Ahsoka's on that list. Jocasta Nu's on that list. A host of others. What if we see the flip side of that? We see the protection of these Jedi. What if Bail is trying to save whatever Jedi are out there and enlists the Bad Batch to go collect them, in a sense, right? And that way you have battles of the Bad Batch going against Inquisitors. I think eventually you would see a Vader. I think it's inevitable we're going to see a Vader at some point in the series. But maybe they become, like you kind of said, Casey, hired mercenaries, but I'm thinking maybe hired protectors in a sense. Maybe they're tasked to go out and find these allies, these Jedi that could be a part of the rebellion to help fight against the Empire. To me, that sounds like a pretty fun show. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Intense.
I dig it a lot. I think it's interesting, this idea of like they're the flip side of the Purge troopers, and maybe they get intel from their training and their, being obviously embedded as clones during Order 66. Maybe they do get some of that intel on where the Jedi are that are remaining, and so they also maybe have this list, and they're sort of like on this race against time, and potentially coming up short in some ways, but then maybe we also get to meet and see certain Jedi. One name that comes to mind is, somebody like Quinlan Vos, all those surviving members that are in the Vader comic.
Yep.
There's names that are on there that some of them I don't even think we've ever heard of or seen.
Nope. There's the one that he actually Vader got his crystal from too. He killed some Jedi in there. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. I think it'd be super interesting.
Yeah. Case, what do you think?
That would be pretty intense. I have to. Jeez, I'm trying to just picture a battle between dark side users and the Bad Batch. It could almost just be completely like a very fast battle, or I'm just trying to think of how they would operate, because obviously they're very, very skilled, but
yeah, strategic, right? You got Crosshair up there.
Yeah, he'll throw his mirrors and bounce lasers all over the place. Yeah, that would be pretty epic. I do like that though. I like the it just because this came up a lot when the Bad Batch arc happened, but it just makes me think so much of Ninja Turtles type storytelling, like the show, just these cool, just amazing guys going up these insanely huge threats of these super powered beings. So it's that would be pretty cool to see. Yeah, Vader would get involved, especially if it does follow that path of the show of these guys getting wrapped up into something much larger, of themselves. Because Vader wouldn't just, I don't think the Empire would worry about going after the Bad Batch unless they were a part of something. So that would be pretty cool. And again, tying into possibly Andor, but maybe more so just that, not even just that spy-esque type. Bail is recruiting them. Maybe this is before bringing in Ahsoka. Before they meet, it's this is literally Bail's first steps on his own, kind of doing a under the radar rebellion type, mission. So that would be really cool. Like you said, this, how do the rebels work? With Andor, it's like this show could literally be those first seeds. It could replace that deleted scene that we lost from Revenge of the Sith. It could be something like that, which could lead into Andor. So literally all these gaps are filling. Hopefully.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I definitely feel we'll see more of those early meetings of the rebellion, with these Senate leaders that are hiding out in the Senate, but then meeting secretly, trying to figure out how to build this thing. I just keep thinking back to, those jaw dropping moments when we were watching the Clone Wars, right? When you watch the Clone Wars, the first season, it's great. It's got all these battles and you're seeing Jedi fighting and whatnot, but then, all these, again, jaw dropping moments. Darth Maul survives, and then you've got Mortis, and you've got all these just things that just start. What are we watching? We're watching just, it's not the Clone Wars. It's like it's a big, myth. It's getting into the Jedi, the heart of the Force, and all that stuff. Then we're watching Rebels, and we're thinking, oh, okay, it's this little batch of rebels from Lothal. But then again, you've got Maul shows up there, Ahsoka comes back, Rex comes back. You're just wowed through the whole thing. And I'm just trying to think of what could wow you in the Bad Batch. What could be those moments where you're like, wow, okay, this just took a turn, an unexpected turn, and I'm along for it. And I think it's got to be something with. I just got to think of something with Jedi and with Vader, Inquisitors, early rebellion, something like that. I think because I think these guys have to have a purpose beyond their own intentions, right? They're kind of a rogue group of clones outside of the normal mandate of a clone, right? They're kind of operating. They understand they have to fight in the war, but they are kind of on their own a little bit. And I think that I love their individuality, like you said, Cody, of them. I think it's really neat the different personalities that they have. So I hope it carries that. I hope, but I think I just think there's a lot there that you can dive into with how they protect themselves and how they kind of stay as a group. And it's going to be, effective seeing what happens to them. Because, there's no guarantee, obviously, that they're surviving this series, right? So, we don't know anything about them. So this is one of them shows where like, okay, we don't know the fate of these characters. So anything is possible. Unlike Andor, unlike Obi-Wan. I mean, this is cool to think about that.
Maybe they have like a Rogue One type mission, right? Where they're going in somewhere where like, they're not guaranteed to make it out, but they've got to, like you said, they've got to carry out something specific that's more given to them, not just their own sort of, thinking, if it's Bail or if it's somebody in the rebellion. One thing I was just thinking is, so there's an unfinished, and I don't know where in the timeline it would have fallen, arc of the Bad Batch on Kashyyyk. I actually don't know that I've watched all the way through it, but it got me thinking about like, and I don't know if this would line up at all, but if they happen to be on Kashyyyk when 66 happans,
oh yeah,
Yoda could be the one to give them their mission.
Yes,
which would be super interesting. Obviously, throwing in another character that would make it really cool to see, a Jedi that actually gives them their, okay, this is what I need you to do. We're all going to go into hiding, but you have to do this, or you have to rescue this person or save this, I don't know, youngling Jedi or whatever. The only other really interesting thing, the last one, is not my own theory or thought, is that the Bad Batch, they save Grogu from the temple, because obviously that would be the, But it's such a short mission that it happens. If it happened during Order 66, that it would be like, oh, the first episode they saved him and he's good now.
That's not a bad
on
thing,
the run
though.
with him. I don't know.
So last thing about it before we end is Case. I mean, what's your expectation on how long do you think this series actually goes? Do you think? Do you think there's enough there for 5, 6, 7 seasons, or is it going to be like Rebels thing where it's like 3 to 4?
Jeez, yeah. I think if it goes the format of these guys, kind of town hopping, planet hopping, and doing these one-off little missions, they can write a lot of those, But for an arc though to carry you across seasons, yeah, I can see the 3. I'm sure you can pull at least 3 seasons for these guys. I mean, especially if it gets wrapped up. I think again about Rebels. They did a lot and 4 seasons, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like it feels like that show, even though it's so small in comparison to obviously the Clone Wars, but it feels such a heavily weighted show of a lot of canon, a lot of content was packed into it. So, Bad Batch, I think you can do, I would say 2 or 3 seasons. I don't know if they would be, I just personally prefer shorter seasons, so it's, I think having like a 22 episode season, I don't know if that's necessary, but I don't know if I want to see that, because that feels to me a lot of those kind of one-off mission episodes, which I just want a good arc, so yeah, so I think that you can pull a good few seasons out of this. I hope. So
yeah, I don't think
good content.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think any of these Disney Plus series are going to be very long. Because if you think about if it's 22, that's half the year. Rolling something like that out every week, but. So I think you're right. I think it's probably in that 12 to 15 range, maybe. Clone Wars, it was 12 episodes last season. So we'll see. Cody, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like, episode wise, probably shorter. Season wise, I think they could probably squeeze like 3 out of it. It basically would, in my mind, follow the Rebels model. Like, it would be first season is like very Bad Batch centric.
Mm-hmm.
Second season, you start opening it up with all of Filoni's favorite characters. I feel like that's exactly what Rebels did. And then, third season is like you're getting into like, okay, Bail is like, hey, we're starting a rebellion, and this is like pre-Rebels rebellion.
Yeah.
Maybe like Casey mentioned, is it does go right into where Andor starts when this whole season or series is finished. If they do 3 or 4, maybe it really does do that, like passing of the torch to the Andor series, if possible.
Yep, very good insights. I think that's. I think those are excellent discussions. I think we'll obviously have more as the weeks lead up to May the 4th. Today's March the 3rd, so pretty much 2 months. 2 months from now, we will have brand new Star Wars animated series to watch and discuss. Hope they drop one more trailer. I don't know. I think we've only gotten one, right? We've only gotten one from Investor Day, I think is what we've gotten. So hopefully there's a little bit more that they'll show, maybe hint at a little bit of a storyline that we can start dissecting as we get closer. So, all right, that will do it for this episode. We appreciate everybody watching, either watching us or listening to us. We're all obviously on all the podcast feeds out there, youtube.com/Inside the Force. Starting up a new interview series here shortly. That'll be coming out soon. We got some council sessions and Beyond the Sagas on there as well to watch. I think that's some good stuff. In fact, I was just thinking of a council session with Bad Batch, like what you just said, about whether or not this is like the gap between Clone Wars to Rebels. This is Filoni kind of filling in those years with this. So that's interesting to
it's
talk
almost
about.
just a question of like, should they be filling in every single gap? Or
it looks like they're trying to
leave something to the imagination, but yeah, they literally are, like, every second. If you're going to live Star Wars in real time, we're getting there.
Yes. We'll have every year coverage from episode 1 to episode 9.
So you watch this movie, then read this book, play this video game, watch this TV show. You gotta have all these screens. Sometimes you have 2 screens on at the same time, like for Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. It's like, okay,
parallels.
It's the second screen experience.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll do it.
I'm telling you, I actually think. Side note, I actually think that they could do that with like Bad Batch in a sense. They could have like. If they do bring in the Inquisitors, like they could have a series on the Inquisitors, and you have that parallel going on back and forth perspective, like they did with the Star Wars comic and the Vader comic. After episode 4, you had a couple scenes that crossed over in both the comics, even though they weren't totally connected.
You can certainly do that within the show itself, not necessarily do a spin-off, random connection, but This Is Us, the show This Is Us, does that a lot. They'll do an episode from the point of view of one character, then this literally the same thing from like a point of view of another character. So they'll tell the same time frame of a story, but what was this person doing during that time? This person. So that you could do something similar to that. I would think. Yeah. That would be pretty different. That would be pretty cool.
I like. Okay. Have a great week and weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here next week on Inside the Force. Thanks to Cody Geiler.
See ya.
And Casey Cooley.
Thank you, bye. Thank you, everybody, and bye. I was combining. Thank you, bye.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Thank you, bye.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
For everybody, appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Go listen and hit that subscribe button. Get some more episodes from us. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week. May the Force be with you.